last time we talked about fractions and how to multiply fractions. Remember the definition we used, the rectangles, to get this? When you multiply two fractions, you just multiply their numerators together and their denominators together. Don't worry, we're not going to have to draw rectangles every time we multiply fractions. That was just to motivate the definition. So when you multiply these two fractions together, you get 10 over 27, right? When you multiply these two together, let's see, you get negative 15 over 8, right? Sound good? When you multiply these two together, you get negative 8 over negative 35. Negative divided by a negative, isn't that just positive? So you could have just written it as 8 over 35. Yeah, don't leave your answer as negative 8 over negative 35. This is considered more simplified. All right, now here, this is a sneaky one. When you multiply 2 times 5/7, there's a trick on this. How would you think of this like this? The answer is, that's right. Think of 2 as 2 over 1. Now it makes sense, doesn't it? You get 10 over 7. Let's talk about some notation here. This is really important. Sometimes it's the small things that get you messed up in math. Look at the difference between this and this. This is a mixed number. It's 2 and 5/7. It's really 2 plus 5/7. This is a multiplication. So that dot there is crucial, isn't it? If there's no dot, we interpret it to be a mixed number. And if there's a dot, that means it's a multiplication. Okay, good. What if you have three fractions? How would you multiply three fractions together? The answer is just multiply straight across. You get negative 5 times 9, which is negative 45. And here you get 2 times 8, which is 16. So there you go. Negative 45 over 16. Okay, well, speaking of mixed numbers, how would you multiply two mixed numbers together? You know how to do that? The answer is we first convert to improper fractions. That's the key. As a general rule in algebra, we like to work with improper fractions rather than mixed numbers. It's just easier to work with. So your answer is, negative 25 over 6 is our answer. How about this? What about x over 5 times 3 over y? We don't know what x and y are, but we do know how to multiply them. You end up with 3x over 5y. There you go. Now remember this, we were talking about this last time. What is 1/2 of 3/5? Remember what that word of means? It means times. So that's just another way of saying 1/2 times 3/5, which is 3/10. What is y over 5 of 3 over x? That seems kind of a funny way to say it, but we know how to compute it. It just means times, so it's y over 5 times 3 over x would be 3y over 5x. There you go. Anyway, this is an important little fact here. This kind of goes back to last chapter. See that negative in front of the fraction? We talked about that a little bit. That negative in front of the fraction, it turns out, when you have a fraction and a negative sign in front, you could either think of it on the numerator, you could take that negative sign and put it on the numerator, or you could put it in the denominator. All three of these things are equivalent, okay? All right, now here's the reason why. Let's just take a look at this. Here's justification of why that's true. See negative 5/7? Remember a negative sign in front of a number means multiplication by negative 1? That's come up a lot, right? When you have like negative 3, it means negative 1 times 3. Okay, so negative and sign in front of 5/7 means negative 1 times 5/7. But wait, negative 1 is the same thing as negative 1 over 1, right? That's what we were just doing up here. So then when you multiply it straight across, you get negative 5 over 7. So that shows why a negative in front of a fraction is the same as on top. Now why is it the same as on the bottom? Because here's another example. When you have a negative of, let's just think about this. 12 over 4 is 3, right? So this is the negative of 3. But this is negative 3 also. What is negative 12 divided by 4? It's also negative 3. And what's 12 divided by negative 4? All three of these things equal negative 3, so they're equal to each other, see? So whether the negative's in the front, the top, or the bottom, they all mean the same thing. Whatever you do, do not put the negative on both of them. If it's on the both, what would negative 12 over negative 4 be? Wouldn't that be positive 3? So don't do that. Either put it on the top or the bottom or in front. It turns out we're not going to use this last one. If you ever get your answer with a negative on the bottom, It's not considered simplified, so either move it, whenever you're working a problem, you get a negative on the bottom, either move it to the top or in the front. I actually like to put the negative on the top as a general rule, because if you put it in front, doesn't it kind of like fade into this division bar? So, but whatever you do, don't leave it on the bottom. So that's what I just said here. An answer is not considered simplified if a negative sign is left on the denominator. So either move it up to the numerator or place it in front of the fraction. So let's get back to what we were doing. Then I'll give you some in just a minute. When you multiply these two fractions, you get 15 over negative 14. But what I just said was, don't leave your answer like this. A teacher might take off like 1 point. It's not a big deal. But if you have a negative on the bottom, just move it to the top, or you could also move it to the front. How about this? When you're multiplying these three fractions, just multiply straight across. What is negative 3x times 5 times negative x? I should say negative z, actually. Don't the negative, if you just look at the numerator, don't the negatives cancel? And so you just get 15xz on the top. And on the bottom, what is 2 times negative 2y times 4? Isn't that going to be, what? Negative 16y? But we don't leave our answer like that. Remember, we move the negative up to the top. That's your answer. Negative 15xz over 16y. Alrighty. So why don't you try these? Go ahead, hit the pause button and go over these. Work these on your own, and we'll go over them in just a couple minutes. Okay. These aren't that hard, but sometimes there's little tricky things. If you don't look at them the right way, they can be kind of a little bit confusing. Like this first one, what is the trick here? That's right. Think of it as 4 over 1. Now it isn't that bad. You get negative 8 over 3. By the way, that's an improper fraction. And some of you might be thinking, oh, should we change it to a mixed number? Some of you maybe change it to like negative, what? Negative 2 2/3 or something. The answer is you don't have to do that. And we'll talk more about that when we get to reducing fractions. That's coming up here. But in terms of, if you're just talking about whether to write it as an improper or a mixed number, either one, they're both the same. Okay. What we want to do is reduce the fractions, and we'll get to that in just a couple more problem sets. But so you don't have to change this to a mixed number. It wouldn't be considered more reduced. All right. Speaking of mixed number, how would you multiply these two together? You go to improper, right? Change them both to improper, and you multiply straight across. I get negative 25 over 6. Here you would change this second one to a improper fraction. You get this. Then when you multiply straight across, I get negative 45x over 10. This one, you multiply straight across, you get 15z over negative 8x. Did you remember to move the negative sign up to the top? Like that. Okay. This one, you multiply it straight across. Let's see. On the top, you can just about do this in one step, maybe. I don't know. On the numerator, you're going to have a positive number because a negative times a negative is positive. This becomes a 4 times 2x. That becomes 8x, right? The denominator, you're going to have a negative, and then 3 times 3 is 9, times 5 is 45. Oh, I missed the w though, didn't I? There's a w there too. So it should be an 8x on the top and a negative 45wy. And so your answer, move the negative up to the top, and so your final answer would be negative 8x over 45wy. Okay, don't forget the w. The last one isn't too bad. What is 2/3 of 4/5? You multiply straight across, and you get 8 over 15. That's right. By the way, some of you might realize, I'll go back to here for just a second before we say goodbye here. On this one, this answer can actually be reduced. We're going to get into that in the next problem set. Reducing means you're making the denominator smaller. But so this one can technically be reduced. Let's not worry about that right now. That'll come up in the next problem set. Alrighty, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.